I'm sleeping on a small rowing boat 1,000 miles away from land, when suddenly I get woken up. I get woken up by a noise that I've heard many times before. It's the noise of my alarm telling me that there's another boat nearby. Slowly waking up, I'm not panicked, and I check my systems, and it tells me that there's an 800-foot drilling ship called Stenforth less than 5 minutes away. Trying to call them on the radio, I had no luck. So I think, okay, I've got to row. I've got to row out of harm's way, because if this boat hits me, it could kill me. Desperately trying to move out of the way, I realise it's not going to work, because I'm side onto the waves, and the waves are going to throw me over the side of the boat. Trying to remember my training, I look for my flares, thinking, which colour do I need to use to warn them that I'm here? Before I use them, I think I'll call them on the radio one more time. Stenforth, Stenforth, Stenforth. The boat. This is Argo, Argo, Argo. They respond. Immediate relief to me. I forget all of my training. Desperately saying, please can you move, please can you move? I've tried to row out of your way. Can you turn north, can you turn north? And they respond, okay, coming to starboard right now. So relieved. I know that I'm going to survive, but I'm still left, stood there, shaking, waiting for its wake to wash over me. Hearing that, you may think that my talk to you is going to be about challenges, about pushing boundaries, or about facing your fears. But it's not. When the organisers asked me to come and do this talk, they said that I could talk about anything. Anything I like. It was up to me. But most people like to talk about their passions, whatever makes their heart sing. Now, I really struggled with this initially, because so many things make my heart sing. Food, sport, the environment, animals, challenges, anything, and in some way I care. So it made it very difficult. So I turned back to a technique that I've used a few times before, and that was to work out not what I wanted, but what I didn't want. Because I found that I've ended up coming to a conclusion a lot faster, with a lot less stress by working backwards. When I was 18, I had no idea what I wanted to do. The whole world was my oyster, and every single door was open. The only way for me to narrow it down, to figure out what I wanted, was by closing a door. I knew that I wanted to keep learning, but then I realised I don't want to go to university. So by closing that door, it opened up so many others. I ended up choosing travel, because I've never actually left the UK before. So I went to a place in the Caribbean after hearing lots of recommendations and the fact that I'd never actually been to a place with a white sandy beach and where the sea was actually warm. So I took myself. I used my money that I'd spent and saved up over the past couple of years doing some swimming teaching, and went to Grenada. Whilst I was over there, I got involved in the swimming community, and I just had the most amazing time, and I knew that I was right, that my decision to not go to university was the correct one. I got involved in island life, and it was incredible. Until about a month in, when the islands got hit by some really bad hurricanes, Irma and Maria, and they just completely devastated most of the northern islands. I was okay because I was far enough south, but lots of the other places weren't. And it made me think, how can I help? What can I do? I'm in a fortunate position. So with me and some friends that we made, we went on a sailboat and we went to take some supplies to a little island called Dominica. Dominica really needed our help because their infrastructure was just completely destroyed. They needed supplies, they needed just help. So we went to go and do that. But I got the bug for being out on the water. I loved seeing the island that I'd just been living on from that view, and I loved the water. So I continued sailing to many of the different islands until I reached one called Antigua. When I was in Antigua, I got told about some rowing boats in a place called Nelson's Dockyard. Knowing that Nelson's Dockyard was a museum sort of place, I just assumed that these boats were maybe rowed across there and that's how they discovered Antigua. But upon going and visiting, I realised that actually these boats were modern. These had just been rowed across the Atlantic, some by one person, others by 4 or 5. Straight away, I was hooked. And after speaking to some of the rowers, some of their family members, and even some of the organisers that helped create this race, I realised one day that I would row the ocean that stood between my home and where I am now. I returned home. I carried on with normal life. I got a job, but I couldn't stop travelling. I continued to travel. I went around Eastern Europe. I went to Romania, Bulgaria. I even came to Greece. But something wasn't letting me settle. There was something that was really, really bugging me. And I needed to try and work out what that was. I needed change. So I needed to just imagine, like, everything was shut off. Put myself in a completely dark room to try and find out what that thing was in the back of my head. Like, if you're trying to sleep, you're in a full pitch black room, but there's a tiny bit of light coming through the corner. Once you've figured what that out is, that's it. You can close it off and you're okay. So I switched off my brain and I realised, even a year and a half later, after finding out about this row, that was still there. I just needed to do it. So I entered. And upon entering, I knew that I was right, because I was relieved. I suddenly felt calm, which isn't the most common feeling after just entering such a life-changing venture to row 3,000 miles across the Atlantic by yourself. Now, a lot of people, I think probably everybody in this room, will have a niggle in the back of their head. There'll be something that they want to do. Some people act upon it, others wait an entire lifetime and always regret. And what was like written on the inside of my cabin on my boat when I finally bought it, it said, "Be stronger than your excuse." And I just thought, but I'm not going to give myself an excuse. It's December 2020, and I'm on a little island called La Gomera after spending an entire year training, preparing, getting qualified, and just doing everything in my power all through the COVID period to actually be here at that moment. A lot of the battle I had was convincing people that I was going to do this. This girl from a landlocked village in northern England is going to row across the Atlantic by herself. So many people didn't believe in me. I think a lot of people wanted to see me fail by saying, "Have you given up yet?" I'm thinking, I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to use that to help me succeed. I'm going to use that to help me win. When I set off on my row, the wind wanted me to fail too. The first few weeks was the hardest few weeks of my life, trying to row desperately against conditions that were crazy and not being able to actually take a drink, because every time I let go of my oar, then Argo and me would get spun round and get taken exactly back where we came from. I was rowing for 18 hours one day non-stop, just to make some progress, battling the conditions. I went to sleep for about 2 hours to realise I'd gone 20 miles back. It's the most demoralising thing. But I just needed to accept it, stay in my cabin and learn, rest and understand every single movement of my boat. The wind continued to be bad the entire crossing, but it did turn and it did help me. And it was now day 68 days at sea. And I was having my last sleep before preparing to row into Antigua for the finish line. The wind and the waves were crazy. Now I knew every single movement of Argo at this point, and I got woken up yet again by another noise. The noise of a wave, which I just knew instantly was too powerful for me and my little boat. As we travelled upside down at 19.2 knots, I got thrown forwards and I smashed my elbow against the battery monitor screen. It meant that I really struggled to row. I couldn't really bend my arm, and I was in so much agony, even through the adrenaline of the fact that I'm about to make a life-changing achievement. So I needed to adjust my rudder, only row with one arm, and use the conditions to help me get into Antigua. finally, I made it. And I was able to hold my flares up proud that I'd achieved this after 70 days, 3 hours and 48 minutes. I was absolutely buzzing. Like, the most incredible feeling. But I needed to return home, and I needed to return to normal. But I wanted to do something else. Not because I felt like I had to. It's just achieving that made me feel like there was so much more to fulfill. And what else is there to do? So I decided to do another challenge. This time, the challenge was swimming. Because I'd never actually rowed before I did the Atlantic. And I didn't realise until after I'd entered that rowing boats did go backwards. But I've swam my entire life. I did my first length at age 4. And so if I could do something so monumental, having never actually done that before, what could I do? Something knowing that I've known for 20 plus years of my life. The row was good enough, but I wanted to still be the swimmer. Everybody back home now called me, "Oh, Jasmine, you're the rower." I'm not a rower. I'd never done that before. I'm a swimmer. I want to do something. I want to become Jasmine the swimmer like I always was. And I wanted a different challenge. In the middle of the Atlantic, the fastest way for me to get home was to row to the finish line. Whereas this new challenge of swimming the full length of the UK meant that I could probably swim into land and get on a bus and be home within 24 hours. So it challenged a different side of me. But I didn't rush into it. I needed time to adjust to the new bar that I'd set. Now I'd rowed across the Atlantic, a lot of other things seemed easier. I could now actually stand in front of people and tell my story. Before doing that, I probably couldn't. And now, this bar, I'm going to be able to swim the full length of the UK, it's going to be set even higher. So adjusting to that in life is quite difficult. It's not easier to get some sponsorship as well. So I spent my time, I trained, and then I threw everything together to set off for my swim in the 1st of July, 2022. Swimming the full length of the UK, I started from Land's End, place most southerly. I jumped off the back of my boat and I started swimming for 6 hours. After 6 hours, I would get back on the boat, rest for 6, get back in the water for 6, day and night, for a full 109 days. The motivation for this was the end, was the struggles that I endured. I was motivated. I was motivated by fear. I was motivated by the fact that I was absolutely terrified of being in the water. The thing that I didn't like the most when I was doing the row was having to get in the water and clean the bottom of the boat. So now I was accomplishing more. I was taking on these fears, literally going in and facing them face on. So I saw whales, and they petrified me. They swam straight underneath me, and I had to still keep on going. Still keep on going when I saw them underneath me at night time, not knowing whether this was an orca which could actually eat me. But every single metre I swam meant that I'd gone too far. It meant that I couldn't stop, because otherwise it was wasted. Every mile I went, I was like, well, that would be pointless unless I made it to the finish line. I was motivated. I was motivated by actually overcoming the problems. The problems were really difficult. So many things that I needed to find a solution to, things that might have stopped me along the way. And I was driven because I said that I would do it. I promised people that I was going to swim the full length of the country. And I hate the idea of that being a lie and not achieving it. So nothing would stop me. Not even horrendous weather conditions, crew members that would just leave the boat and leave me there with nobody to help. Just waves and wind that were taking off my goggles and losing them in the sea. I had to face it, and nothing would stop me to get to John O'Groats, the most northern point of the UK. I completed it. I completed my swim through pure grit and determination. Now, if you'd have asked me, Jasmine, why didn't you just run a marathon or something? I would say, I couldn't do that. I would be 100% more likely to fail because my heart isn't within a marathon. Doing this swim, it made my heart sing. Now, to find what makes your heart sing, I had to focus a lot on my past, things that had been building blocks throughout my life that added up to me being me, What was it? How do I learn about myself? What actually makes you stop when you walk past a shop window? What is it about that one shop that made you think? You go, that, I like that. Each one of these little things is a building block to create you, to create what actually makes you happy, what makes your heart sing. But these are all around us every single day. But why act upon them? The question why always annoyed me. People would ask me why before each of my challenges. And I hated it because I just couldn't answer. I can't answer why. Now, I haven't rowed since doing my Atlantic crossing, and I haven't swam in the sea since doing my challenge either, because I don't feel the need to do it. There's so much more out there. So saying why I want to do that, beforehand, you don't know. You only know during and afterwards. Seeing the sunsets on flat, calm water with so much solitude is the most incredible feeling. And knowing that you're in a place where no other person is ever going to row or swim again or before. And that's why. The animals that you swim with, the dolphins that become your friends, the environment that you get accepted into, it makes you feel actually at one with nature, and it makes you feel more human than anything else. And that's why. The sheer pain, the pain that you endure the entire time, the training you need to do, the muscles that just want to tear and hurt you, just the things that go wrong, and the fact that you can't stop because you know the pain is going to get worse and it drives you forwards. That makes you feel human, and that is the reason why. And the people that you meet, complete strangers which turn into best friends. These strangers that never knew you and just wanted to help you do something because that was a kind and loving thing that they believed in. And it makes me want to be like them, help more people, and let people achieve more things of their goals. And that's why. Now, I wouldn't do either of my challenges again. I wouldn't row across the Atlantic because I don't want to change my story. And I wouldn't swim the full length of the UK because I don't want to devaluate what I've already done. Often the hardest and darkest times are the best because they just highlight all of the good and all of the amazing around you. So I want to say to you that if people here, if you have a niggle in the back of your head, something that you want to do, don't find that excuse. And if you have one, be stronger than it. Thank you.